pagod na naranasan natin, hirap, gutom. Kung gusto nyo na hindi pa maranasan or ayaw nyo pang mamatay, bumaba na kayo or magbalik loob kayo sa gobyerno.
Napakalawak ng saklaw ng batas laban sa pang-aabuso sa kabataan. Noong June 17, 1992, inilabas ang batas Republic Act 7610 na naglalaman ng mga karapatan ng kabataan at mga batas laban sa pang-aabuso sa kanila. Nakatalaga sa Article 10 ng nasabing batas, ang mga kabataan ay dapat may espesyal na pagtrato. Dapat din silang protektahan mula sa anumang anyo ng pagbabanta, pananalakay, pagpapahirap at iba pang malupit at di makataong gawain.
Ang mensahe ko, kung sakaling nagbabala kayo at naiisip nyo na tama or kailangan nyo pumasok dyan, kung ano man yung problema nyo, hindi solusyon ang revolusyon. Kasi kusang loob nyo lang na masusolusyonan ang problema nyo.
At ang mga bata ay hindi dapat hinihikayat na maging miyembro ng anumang mga armadong grupo. Hindi sila dapat hinahasa sa kagubatan para makipagsagupa, makipaglaban sa pamahalaan.
Ngayon, okay na yung buhay namin, nakapag-aral na ako, at saka marami ng pagbagong buhay na sa amin dahil sa nagbalik loob kami sa gobyerno.
Ang mga kabataan ay dapat na ipinadala sa mga paaralan upang mag-aral, magtapos at magtrabaho para sa kanilang kinabukasan.
Pre, anong pizza na nga?
Ano ka ba? Magpapasko na.
Oh, dito mo na yan ba?
Sana makasama ko ang anak ko ngayong Pasko.
Double D, 1134 kHz, Tatropa Radio, iba tayo!
The opinions expressed on the radio program by the host, guest, and call-in listeners or chatters are solely the opinions and responsibility of the original source who expressed them. They do not necessarily represent the opinions of the station DWDD, Katropa Radio, the CRS-AFP, and the AFP in general. Viewers and listeners are urged to use their own discernment to draw their own conclusions.
Isang aklat lang ang iyong dala. Minsa'y wala naman pero papasok pa. Kahit anong mangyari ay tuloy-tuloy ka lang. Basta kami mayroong natututunan. Minsan ay kahit
Good afternoon to all of our listeners.
minsa'y nakakatakot.
Good afternoon to all of our listeners here at DWDD Katropa Radio. You are listening to your favorite Sunday afternoon habit, the voice of the teachers, the only radio program for teachers, by teachers, and with teachers. Sitting in for Dr. Ray Samson, this is your host, Bobby Ancheta, and with me is your bubbly language specialist, Katropang Jet.
Yes, good afternoon, Katropang Bobby, at sa lahat po ng mga nanonood ngayon.
How are you today?
I'm good. Ang gawin mo, nasunod din.
As they say, I'm sorry, it's drizzling outside, but as they say, blessings come in different forms.
That's right.
The drizzle that we have outside is also another form of a blessing.
Absolutely.
This Sunday is our last Sunday of the month, and this month we are celebrating the Language and Information Services Month as well.
Could you tell us more about it?
Well, the language, I'm sorry, it's not language, but Library and Information Services Month. So this is the month where, of course, the librarians would be holding activities to be able to also feature and highlight the services which we can get or receive from our libraries, and also with the other information services that they provide.
That's why madalas na sa labas yung library namin. And the problem lang is that people do not seem to patronize libraries anymore.
That's true. And usually November is also the month when tayong mga English teachers will be holding our special activities sa senior high school, sa junior high school, and even sa elementary.
Kami wala, senior high classes as usual.
Okay. I remember we would be having storytelling activities. There would also be parang mga character parade sa elementary, yung mga character parade sa kanilang mga fairy tales. And actually, they still do that to be able to encourage children to read and visualize. And today is also the last Sunday of the month of November, which is also the last bar examination day. So, kaya right now I'm wearing yung uniform namin sa Masons Order of Law Association. We're currently conducting our bar operations as well. So we wish the best of luck. We hope for clarity, for guidance from the great architect of the universe to all who are taking the bar right now.
Yes, and of course I hope all students would be able to exercise honesty and discernment when they take their exams. It's not just about passing, right?
I totally agree, Katropan Jet. Before we proceed further, I would like to greet our AFP officials, the Department of National Defense, Secretary Delphine N. Lorenzana, the AFP Chief of Staff, General Noel S. Clement, AFP, CRS AFP Commander Brigadier General Ernesto Caso Torres Jr., AFP. I was very honored to have met him during our broadcasters forum, which happened just this Wednesday.
How was it?
It was good. See, Ma'am, our station commander was also there. She briefed us of the duties and responsibilities of broadcasters, and also the mission and the vision of our station and of the AFP as a whole towards 2030, 2040.
Yeah,
of course, the Group Commander of Media and Civil Affairs Group and DW Katropa Radio Station Manager, Major Luzel Lara. Good afternoon, ma'am. I would also like to greet our DWDD Katropa Radio Production NCO, Sergeant Jeffrey Malimban. Sir, thank you very much for all of your help.
Yes, and siya nga pala, before we start, I would like to plug in. This is from MFI because I'm part now of the marketing department. It's ko bago ng field. Okay, the MFI Polytechnic Institute Incorporated, formerly Meralco Foundation Incorporated, is offering free scholarship for 2-year industrial technician programs. This is guaranteed OJT placement with allowance. So the course is, okay, we have 30 slots for automation and mechatronics technology and 10 slots for semiconductor manufacturing technology. So this is open to all, and they have to have the following qualifications. First, they should be a high school graduate, or they should be senior high school graduate. They could be course or career shifters, and they must be from ages 18 to 29.
Yes. Okay. I think we should now proceed to our only segment. We have one segment this afternoon.
Kala ko dalawa po eh.
Okay.
Okay, so today our segment is Speak Up, which is about language research, practice, and teaching. So good afternoon, dear Katropas, and especially those who are our followers, likers, and listeners who are tuned in to our program today. I'm your segment host for Speak Up, Katropang Jet Ramos. So for this month's episode, since last September we discussed the informal debates. This time we will be talking about formal debates, and so our episode is titled Formal Debates, Its Conventions and Applications. And today we have a seasoned debater, especially during his college days, who was a founding member of both debate clubs at PNU and PCU. And now he is a proud civil servant who still mentors aspiring debaters. So ladies and gentlemen, mga katropa, now we have Mr. Exer Revo Alcantara.
Yes, good afternoon to all our viewers and all to our viewers here and abroad, possibly.
Yes.
Good afternoon, Sir Jet. Good afternoon, Sir Bobby. Thank you for welcoming me and being a part of this wonderful program.
Yeah, it's our pleasure. So, ayun, hinati po ito sa dalawang parts yung ating segment ngayon. First is the basics of debate, or formal debate to be specific, and second, common types of debates and logical fallacies. So, dito po tayo sa part 1. So, for starters, paano natin ma-define ang debate as a part of language learning and, of course, development of logical thinking?
All right. First of all, when we talk about debates, we started already with informal debates. So there's a proposition and there's an opposition. So we have a thought. Normally in debate terminologies, our language, we tell the topic, we call it as a motion. So normally it starts with this house believes that, this house will, this house rejects. So when you say this house, it means everybody in the specific room or everybody who is listening or a part of the conversation.
But that would depend on the form.
Definitely, we'll go with that later.
Yes.
But for normally, in the Philippines kasi, the debating circles, we use the parliamentary form. So we normally say this house. All right. Then, as part of language learning, we all know that language has 4 basic skills like listening, reading, writing, and speaking. So as part of language learning, how you debate definitely means you have to communicate. So language is formed and learned by participating in the debate itself, not just during the debate, but prior to that, by preparing for the debate.
Yes.
You have to read a lot, you have to talk to people, you have to gather the information relevant for the topic you're going to discuss. Now, in terms of the development of logical thinking and logical learning, mostly there is propositions. There are topics where it's not as straightforward. For example, there is this one debate which was recently held at Baguio Teachers Camp just last November 21, 22. I adjudicated or I judged that debate with many college students. The motion was this. This house believes that social media is detrimental to Generation Z. All right, so at first thought, when you say detrimental, so masama to, it's bad for Gen Z, but is it really bad? Is it inherently good or is it inherently bad? So you have to think about, okay, so first of all, who is Gen Z? Why is social media, is it really detrimental? So if you're for the proposition, well, it's detrimental because. If you're in the opposition, no, it's not detrimental. And there are many levels you can argue with that. So in that way, in being part of a debate, in preparing for the debate, you think about things that are not normally thought of in advance.
And before the debate, I remember I also was the team manager of one debate which successfully won but this was way back in the 1990s. Before the actual debate, there was this meeting.
Yes.
There was this meeting between the two sides, and there were certain things that the two have to agree. Let's say, for example, what are our eto na yung definitions? When we say social media, what are we referring to?
Exactly.
Because if we do not have this consensus on our definitions, it can go haywire yung discussion kasi wala nang limits eh. So that's why there should be this pre-debate meeting. I forgot how they call it, but there is this meeting in which the two sides will be agreeing on certain definitions and then mga agreements on how things are supposed to be done and so on, together with the coaches as well.
Yes.
And I think this is also inherent in all of the debates. When you come up, there is this question of what is a good proposition.
Yes.
How do we define it?
All right. In defining a good proposition, you should always see. Okay, for teachers, if you're listening here, you define a good proposition or a good motion if it's debatable. Now, if there's a proposition that it's inherently one-sided or lopsided, you take that out.
Yes.
I mean, even debaters would say, "Sir, we veto this motion because we think that it will highly favor one side." Now, also, it has to be very relevant to the times.
Yes.
Why should you debate a topic that is 19 kopong-kopong or ancient times? And why should you debate a topic that is not as relevant to your country? Maybe napaka-far view naman nung debate na to. Why are we debating Africa? We have issues here in the Philippines. But it all depends on the organizers and the debaters. Maybe there's a certain topic that is out of here but has far-reaching effects to our country or to the person debating. For example, this House believes that the policies of Donald Trump is detrimental to Philippine government. But teka lang, with that motion, let's set the parameters. It's possible, but what are the parameters for the debate? So that's how you make a good proposition. It's inherent. Is it lopsided? If it's not, take it away. Is it relevant? Okay. Is it timely?
Yes.
And do the debaters actually know the topic? Yun yung problema. There was this one debate. This was my very first debate. I got eaten by San Beda. We debated about the International Atomic Energy Association, which Dr. Faraday won the Nobel Peace Prize. Of course, we know the spirit of the topic, which was the atomic prize. We didn't know the actual motion 30 minutes before. So we didn't know
that's very difficult.
That is a very difficult, especially for a second-year college student for that debate. So that was a learning curve for me that I should know about the topics at hand. So that's how you do it.
So it should not be always too controversial and too difficult in terms of level.
Well, actually, Katropanjet, it would even be good if it's controversial.
Why?
Because if it's controversial, that is really very fertile for a debate, which is the very reason why we have debates.
So you mean to say it's much better to lengthen it than to shorten it?
Not really lengthening or shortening it, but I think our resource person can explain that further.
All right, maybe you can go to another. Let's talk about the structure of a debate. Okay, there are certain types of debate that is structured, meaning to say you have one speaker goes first, then the other speaker, and then there's a time limit. All right, so one of the simplest forms of debate, the Oregon-Oxford debate, or even the Oxford type of debate.
And also the Lincoln-Douglas.
The Lincoln-Douglas debate. You have a set of time. Sometimes, kasi, because of its varied use in the States, even here in the Philippines, you can go for 1 minute preparation and 5 minutes constructive, or maybe up to 4.5 minutes constructive, and then an interpolation period. Okay, so when we structure that debate, when we go forward with that debate, you're given 5 minutes constructively to speak about your side of the debate. Now, when speaking about your side of the debate, this is where how do you call this? If it's controversial really matters. Because if it's controversial, then you know a lot about the topic. You can define the topic for your side. And if you're against, the other side, then you know a lot of arguments that can actually debunk the other side. So it goes hand in hand. Well, if it's really controversial, if it's very relevant to the topic, it furthers the development of language. It furthers the development of logical thinking. Ito mga katropa, sabihin ko lang, maybe we should develop debate in this country as well. I mean, rather than sa amin, sa competitive building. Kasi you never know that some people or some of our learners, our students, have this innate ability to think about issues which tayo hindi natin naiintindihan or it doesn't crop up into our daily thinking. But if they are forced, this is a natural occurring effect of a debate. You are forced to think.
And Katropan Jeff, in language teaching, as we have already said, it's better if it's really an actual scenario in which the person would be using the language compared to preparing the words that one is supposed to be used saying. Kasi if you do that, yung learning mo of a new language is slower because you prepare it ahead of time. Whereas, if it's going to be spontaneous, if it's going to be a real life situation, much better.
Yes, and I guess it would help you to communicate more with other people. And in a formal debate, what about the type of language?
Well, it depends. But I think it's very interesting if we go back again to the different forms.
Sure.
We mentioned Lincoln Douglas debate. And then we also have the Oregon Oxford, which surprisingly is having a comeback right now.
Yes, it is having a comeback.
Yes.
Why is that so?
Because in the past, ang common na debate structure is the Oregon Oxford, in which you usually have two sides. These two sides usually would have three.
Yes, 3 points. Or
three speakers on each side, and these are how they are divided. The first is all the time the necessity. The necessity, the beneficiality, and practicability or workability. Usually, these are the three sides. And of course, you have two sides, two speakers. The first speaker of the affirmative side will all the time define the terms. And then, depende kasi meron silang sinasabing modified Oregon Oxford. Yes.
How does it go, the modified?
sometimes the modified Oregon Oxford depends on which organization develops it. Sadly, yung modified Oregon Oxford follows the parliamentary style na of debating, whereas points of information can be held on the actual constructive speech. Whereas before, the real Oregon Oxford type of debate, there is no POI said on the constructive speech, but you have an interpolation period after the speech.
POI is point of information.
Which we'll talk about later sa parliamentary. Iba yun.
Yes, and this is also the form in which we have a different proposition, because in the Oregon Oxford it starts with resolve that. Which is different from the usual parliamentary form, which begins with this house believes, or this house
will, or go, or regret. Marami yan.
So mga ganon. Okay, so ganon na. Katropang Jet. Exciting to. I'm familiar with this one because ito yung form in which I was team manager of our team when we went to this debate in Davao City. So, necessity from the affirmative side, siya yung unang nagde-define ng terms, and there are instances in which the first speaker of the affirmative side would be given 1 more minute above the rest because this particular speaker has to define the terms. Now, after the constructive speech, this is followed by maybe a 5-minute interpellation. When you say interpellation, this is when the opposite side would be asking questions. So eto rin sa Senate natin yung sinasabi na interpellation.
Oh yes.
Okay. So when you interpellate, you're actually asking questions. So usually 5 minutes, and then parang debate na yan. And there are also certain techniques there. Na merong Socratic method of asking questions, and sometimes parang sinasabi na so that you will not hindi ka makahon. Do not answer hypothetical questions, yung sinasabi nila.
And most ito pag Oregon Oxford, bait and switch yun eh, which is we don't, as a debater, you normally know when a question pointed at you is this is not a legit question.
Yes.
The opponent, it's a strategy, and sometimes a point is taken from you by the judges pag kinagat mo. And then kapag hindi mo kinagat and you pointed it out to the opposing speaker, and then the judge will dinindigit nila dun sa nagtanong. So as a speaker also and in real life, tignan mo rin yung question. Is the question legitimate for you?
So, yun na. 5-minute interpellation. After that one, it's now the negative side, the first speaker of the negative side, which is necessity. Yun na yung sinasabi.
Necessity.
Bakit ba natin pag-uusapan tong topic na to? Is this important? Is this relevant to us? So, necessity of the change. Kasi when in the Oregon Oxford, you usually would be going against the status quo. So meron kang change na ini-introduce in the Oregon Oxford form of debate. So for example, right now, resolved that abortion be legalized in the Philippines, for example, because the status quo is that abortion is not illegal. Abortion is illegal. The same manner as resolved that divorce be legalized here in the
and
Philippines.
recognized too.
Yes, so ganon. So the opposite side would all the time say it's not necessary for us to have this proposition because we already have, let's say, annulment, we have legal separation, and so on. So yun yung side nila. And then after that one, this time around, yung first speaker of the negative side will again be interpellated by the first speaker. So ganon.
So it's an exchange of
It's an exchange.
ideas.
There is also another format na ang mag-interpolate nitong necessity negative speaker is going to be the second person of the first of the affirmative side. Depende yan sa format na pinag-uusapan ng both sides.
And there's one also, may isa pang modified which is na-intrigue ako. Kasi after the interpolation of the speakers, there's an interpolation of the audience. So there's another, sabi ko, wow, bago to. Pero hindi pala siya bago. It's an old form of Oregon. It's a modified Oregon Oxford, pero lumang-luma na. Wherein the audience, pero the judges do not give points to the questions of the audience kasi possibly yung isang audience member katropa yung so yon, but they judge the weight of the answer by the speaker. So that's another format, pero yun nga, in terms nga of the structure of the debate and logical thinking development. So on the fly, when you are the speaker, hindi pwedeng parang prepared ka na sa question and answer. No, the questions suddenly become extemporaneous or impromptu based on the situations. Yes, so you as a speaker or a debater, you have to be very prepared for that.
But I've got a question. What if the question turns out to be either confusing or something that you do not really know? You have heard of it just
right now.
Yes.
Okay, as a debater, we have techniques to make sure that we can answer or we don't answer unnecessary questions. Number one, I would say, thank you for that wonderful point. I will answer that in my next point, or I will answer that later in my speech, and I can be forgiven if I don't remember. Oh, that's
and
fine.
another way is that the person who's being interpellated can ask, can you please qualify your question?
That's one.
Although hahaba din yung
But pero may pros and cons kasi if you let him qualify, it will take up your time.
Yes.
So you always have to
Pero that's okay because ako yung tinatanong eh. So if the other person qualifies the question, therefore he would be eating his time.
So you mean to say it would be a point against him or her?
It depends, yes. It depends.
So ganun nakatropang Jet. Pagkatapos nun na yung three speakers would be able to deliver their constructive speeches and are already interpolated, there is a part in the debate of the Oregon Oxford which is the rebuttal speeches. Now it depends upon kung ano yung napag-agrihan, because it could be that one of the three speakers will deliver the rebuttal speech, or it could be another speaker specially designated to write down the points and then have the rebuttal speech at the end. Yung rebuttal speech, of course, wala nang interpellation nun. So yung rebuttal mo is the part in which you now summarize all of the mistakes, all of the errors of the other side. But this time around, ang mangyayari, it's going to be the negative side that speaks first.
Yes.
And then the affirmative side is going to be the last one who will deliver the rebuttal speech.
Yes, I would like to ask, could you cite sources, especially from academic texts, so that you would buffer up your points?
Argento, in the World Community of Debating, we have this idebate.org website. It's basically the whole repository of anything and everything that you want to know about debate. So to Katropa and to all the teachers who want to know more about or want more resources regarding this, I could want to please go to idebate.org. Because lahat po to, from even points from LaSalle, from Ateneo, their debating societies actually get resources with this website. All right. So going forward po dun sa, kasi we talked about Oregon Oxford eh. There's also this other type of format which is ginagamit natin ngayon. This is the parliamentary form. It is very familiar, and it's familiar with the Oregon Oxford. However, there are certain modifications that's particular to this format, such as
Before we go to that one, Katropan Jet, I would just like to share this. I learned this from our team coach sa debate namin, debate coach namin, si Professor Reynaldo Rivera. One of the techniques na sinabi niya is that if you want to debunk the claim of the other side, you research on the body of research ng kabilang school.
Oh, how would you do that?
Of course, you look at ano yung mga researches nila sa graduate school nila and so on, especially if there is something related sa topic ninyo. Because it could be a very, very witty way of debunking the other side's claims. Sasabihin mo, but according to one of your graduate students or a study conducted by this school, was
or
like
even
this.
An author.
So ganon. So parang kung ikaw, debater ka, mapahiya ka because you're going against kung anong studies which was conducted by one of your researchers.
Was just like writing your review-related literature.
pwede.
Yeah.
Well, ayun nga. As well, dun nga, regarding that, that did happen in one, but I'm not gonna tell kasi some of our viewers know this baka makita niyo to. But it did happen between one rival schools. That did happen, pero pareha silang diniduct ng points since, well, you shouldn't go too personal with your questions.
Okay.
It was a good point, however, the questioner got too personal and the one who answered got too personal. So be very careful doing that strategy.
Not being emotional.
And that's why in the parliamentary form, you have a moderator. And even in the Oregon Oxford, you have a moderator. Because you're not supposed to be getting too personal.
Yes.
And supposed to be the questions and you raise points of information sa parliamentary form, you raise it and then if there is going to be any objection or whatever, there is a moderator or there is a how do you call this?
We call that the adjudicator.
Adjudicator.
And he will say that out of order, and that immediately stops the questioning. All right, so how does the parliamentarian work? There are still two sides. Okay, there are two types of parliamentary debates used in the Philippines. I'll just cite one kasi if we go to the other one, medyo mas complicated na yan. So the Asian parliamentary procedure or the modified Asian parliamentary debate goes very much well like Oregon Oxford. There are two sides and there are three speakers. But instead of saying the proposition or the affirmative or the negative, we now change it to the government and the versus the opposition. So iba naman yung convention naming. So the first speaker for government, it's a government, so it should be the Prime Minister. The second speaker, it now becomes the Deputy Prime Minister. And then the last speaker will be the member of government or can also be called as the government whip.
Okay. That's what I wanted to ask. What do you mean by whip?
All right. If you know anything about the parliament before, even in the UK parliament, the whip or the parliamentary whip actually whips up, literally before, whips up erring members. When they don't do
Whip
it,
is WHIP.
Pero ngayon, of course, no, we don't use the whip anymore. But they just use verbal, stay your ground, shut up, or just stay in your place. So that's why they say the whip. But in terms of debate, if you're the last speaker of both sides, you get to rebut the other speech. Not just the first speech, not just the preceding speech, but you get to rebut the totality of the speeches. Kasi ikaw yung last speaker. So if I was the government whip, I have heard the first two speakers of the opposition. So I would rebut all their speeches. Where in the opposition naman, kasi, well, he or she's the last speaker, gets to whip all three of the affirmatives.
So regardless of which side you are on, you really have to remember every point.
Yes. in my lingo, normally how I teach, sometimes the whip, they are the laziest ones when it comes to preparation.
Because
Okay.
you wait the
Exactly.
debate.
So, ang trabaho niya happens during the debate. Whereas
Yes.
the Prime Minister, ang trabaho niya before the debate,
Yes.
he has to prepare everything. If you're the government whip, you're lazy at the preparation, but you have a hell of a rough time when it comes to during the debate. You're taking down notes, you're listening to what's happening in the debate, and then when your time comes up, you speak about the totality of the debate.
So you're allowed to take notes during
Alright,
debate?
okay.
You
So,
have to. You have to take notes.
Here's in the parliamentary form of
Thought you
debate,
had to
which is
memorize.
different with the Oregon Oxford. The difference between a parliamentary debate is you're only given 30 minutes upon giving of the motion. Now, before that even starts, there are 3 motions, and both sides we call it choose. In lingo, it's veto. You
Veto.
veto the 3 motions.
Or pose?
Yes. And then whichever has the lowest number or whichever motion that both sides agree upon is the motion of the debate. So that's the topic of the debate. And after that, you're given 30 minutes, you prepare. Both sides prepare.
By the way, Katropan Jet,
Yes.
we mentioned the Prime Minister, which is
Yes.
the first speaker of the affirmative side or the
Yes.
government side. Yung sa kabila, yung leader nila is the leader of the opposition.
Yes, leader of the opposition.
The second person,
He's called normally as either the deputy leader of opposition or we call him the member of opposition. Kasi yung third is the automatic opposition whip.
Wow.
Yung third na yun. Now, so as before, dun sa Oregon Oxford kasi may constructive time ka.
Yes.
The difference between the Oregon Oxford and the parliamentary debates is during your speeches, you have 7 minutes to speak. The first minute is protected. Meaning you can't
Yes.
be questioned.
no questions.
From the start of the second minute up till the end of the 6th minute, this is what we call the time for you to be questioned. So the opposing side can actually ask you a point of information. This is what we call now the POI, going back. So any time between the first and the 6th minute, you can be questioned. At the 7th minute, it's a protected minute. The speaker has to end his or her speech. So that is the difference. There is no more interpolation period with the parliamentary debate.
Dito naman po tayo dumako. So what are the common misconceptions that students and other people have about debates?
This is the number one, and this is where I get a flack a lot from other teachers. When I was trying to teach in my teaching years, kasi I had to teach kasi during my final years of education studies. But when you try to encourage students, learners, and even their parents for their kid to join a debating society or debating club, I think that's for matalino kids. I think that is for well-informed kids. Yes, definitely. Why? That's how we make your kids intelligent or matalino.
Yes.
It's a common misconception. One, it's for rich kids.
No.
Why it's not for rich kids? Kasi the people normally known for debating, they're from Ateneo, LaSalle, from UST. Sabi ko, no, if you go through the community of debating, there are some scholars from the Norsu school in Visayas. Even USC are scholars.
Norsu is Negros Oriental.
State
Negros
University.
Oriental.
I know our debater from Central Luzon State University.
Oh, that's in Nueva Ecija.
Yes, who's a scholar. Another is from Western Visayas State University.
Iba-iba.
So hindi po siya, it's not for rich kids only. It's actually, the best debaters I know are scholars.
MSU IIT. They have a very good debating team there in Mindanao. And it's really very dynamic at Tropang Jet because, of course, the training in school is all the time
Emphasized.
it's not only emphasized, it's regular. It has to be something that is consistent.
So it should be continual.
It's continuous, and then yun na yung mangyayari na parang when they stand up to raise their points of information, ang galing pakinggan because they really look very intelligent and very intellectual sa delivery nila ng kanilang points. And it's now where you see how your students would be able to think critically because you do not have teachers there who will be whispering to them kung anong points of information i-raise.
So they're forced to read and ask.
Yes, they have to
And even
listen.
observe.
It improves their writing skills. It improves their speaking skills. It improves their listening skills because they really have to read. And of course, it improves their reading skills as well because they have to do research.
Yes.
So ang daming mga skills that they develop through debate.
Yes. So DepEd should really consider this. Then, what are the common logical fallacies that we tend to commit during debates?
And actually, while preparing for this, I have to go back to my philosophy classes. Normally, kasi the types of fallacies that you do in a debate is similar to what you learn in philosophy classes. So, number one, there's ad hominem,
What
which
is
means
it?
it's argumentum ad hominem for those who are not well versed in philosophy. It just means an argument against the person.
Yes, you attack the person.
So it's
For-
character assassination?
Well, kasi when you talk about in a debate, if you use a POI, say, Mr. Speaker, I think that your question is invalid because the motion means about taking a bath and you smell very bad. That's
Yes.
a direct affront, so that's
Yes.
an ad hominem.
Uh-huh.
And
Hominem.
for beginners, they normally commit this flaw kasi they attack. Another one is argument, ano to? Appeal to pity, argumentum ad misericordiam, which means you try to appeal to the judges or to the listeners that his argument doesn't break ground because it's not part of the status quo. I mean, would you rather do this or that than do this or that? So those are the this is one of my favorite argumentum is the bandwagon appeal.
What is it?
Yes.
So it's like that's not happening in real life. We cannot do it because like so and so. Like say, let's just say, well, we can't go for an iPhone because the school is for Android. So therefore, everyone should have Android.
It's the same with 9 dentists cannot be wrong. 9 out of 10 dentists are for this particular ano.
Oh, that's what you use in commercials.
That's now exactly that is joining the bandwagon.
Or like, or for example, one of this is almost everyone at my school will be at the party, a Friday night. It must be a popular thing to do. Or you could say almost everyone at my school will be at the party Friday night. It must be the right thing to do. So that's a bandwagon fallacy. Just because everybody else is doing it doesn't mean that means you have to do it. So that's one of the every time when I go to a debate and I listen to that, I automatically I have to raise this at the oral adjudication because that's a bandwagon fallacy. Mostly this is committed at this time kasi mga Generation Z or millennials have this medyo but other debaters even from this generation naintindihan nila, they know it that it's a fallacy. You should not raise it in this school. So with regards to the common fallacies, I would like you to go to the internet is full of it and there's just 15 of that. So very common yung iba and then there are others sa law school malalaman natin yun, diba? I will not discuss that, but those are one of the 15. So there's argumentum ad hominem, and then there's the argumentum ad misericordiam, which
Argumentum ad baculum.
ad bacul. Oh no,
What is it?
I will not discuss it here. But guys, research on ad baculum. Don't do it. Just don't do it.
So I would also like to ask this one. So what are the real-life applications of debates in students' lives outside the classroom and even professionals?
Oh wow. Yeah. This is in real life. It happened to me. I think I was alive. Sorry. I think I was still part of high school debating when the trial of former President Estrada was out.
Yeah,
And
impeachment?
the impeachment trial, yes, as well as the impeachment trial of the former Chief Justice Corona. And there were a lot of controversial questions. There were a lot of topics that were raised. Because of lots of topics that were raised, we had to find the time and the format so that we can raise it properly. We went through the debating procedure. So that was one thing, because if there are many, especially in the schools where even controversial topics are raised, the teacher raises a question, ma'am, let's just do a debate so that we can end this eventually. But in real life situations, what you learn about debate is, number one, you never think immediately about a certain thing. You go deeper. You ask the right questions. You ask the questions that are not even questioned, right? Secondly is that you develop a sense of confidence. Whereas other language speaking skills, they teach you how to speak properly, how to write properly, how to listen to the points, how to raise the points. In a debate, you not just actually listen to it, but you try to formalize the proper answer. You try to ask the right, why is this person telling me this question? Is there something to it? Or do I have to read between the lines? Or listen between the quotes that he's telling to me? Another thing is you also know how to do an impasse, which
What is
means
an impasse?
you just tell the person, thank you, but I cannot do it. Maybe you can ask another person. You do an impasse. You're, okay, thank you for telling me that, but I'm not the right person for you to be talking to that. There's a lot of little hints. There are a lot of subtle things in speeches. Nuances in the debate that you get to use in real life.
And you can be very tricky in your responses as well. Na parang
Just
yung
like what?
sinasabi natin, merong palaman. Merong palaman.
May bato sa'yo na hindi mo
Yeah,
naintindihan.
could you give some examples so that our listeners and viewers would be more
Ang dami
knowledgeable?
katropan siya. Pero okay, I'll give you an example.
Sure.
This is something which even my cousin is a little bit confused, because if you go to the United States, they have witty comments like, "Oh, bless your heart." Okay, no, "Oh, bless your heart." From a religious point of view, bless your heart, that means you're praying for the person, you care for the person.
Yeah.
But if you go to, let's say, the southern part of the United States, in the south, when they say, "Oh, bless your heart," that means, "Oh, you're stupid." That's what they meant by that one. Which is why, if you would remember this, Kelly, yung isang ambassador to the United Nations na nag-quit na, there was one point she was supporting another candidate against Trump. And then when Trump made a comment sa kanya, she said, "Oh, bless his heart." So actually, ang interpretation going down south, when somebody says, "Oh, bless your heart," that means you're a little bit of a cuckoo. Meron kang
You're a deviant or something?
Basically,
Or
you're saying
you-
you're
you're
stupid
off.
in a very subtle way.
So, yung mga ganon. So, that's one witty way in a debate. We do that. Pero, katropan Jet, our research speaker also talked about it helps you develop your arguments, especially in writing. Because
it does.
when you write, when you participate in debates, it also makes you think, how well will you be able to how well will you organize your thoughts so that you'll be able to have the best impact sa message na gusto mong sasabihin. So, what are the elements that you would like to include in your speech? What are the points or the arguments? And by the way, one of the first things that a debater should know is how to form his or her arguments. So, when we say arguments, that means these are the things that you would like to prove. You would like to
The points, the claims.
the points that you would like to convince or persuade the other party to accept, because that's one of the objectives of debates. You have to convince, you have not so much with persuasion but convince.
Yes.
Sinasabi nga
To
nila,
prove that you're right?
it's the process of conviction.
Yes.
The opposite of persuasion is conviction. You have to convince the other party, the other person, of your arguments. And to become a good debater as well, you have to know how to come up with your argumentative brief, especially sa
Yes.
Oregon Oxford.
Yes.
Okay, so
Now,
ganon siya.
Yeah.
And
Also, just to cut it there, kasi may not just to convince or use your argument, but actually how to, I don't want to say this, it's the bad, not to destroy the argument, but to use the argument of your opponent against them. May ganon. Kasi there is one time where I've been on the the receiving end of this, where I made one argument, but the other opposing side, I was the opposition, he was the government, he saw through my argument. I was using their argument. So what he did was, he cited my argument and he said, well, this is based from our argument. And the opposition is just using it, but he doesn't understand the premise of that argument. Meaning, what he was trying to say is, hindi ko alam yung ibig sabihin ng argument na yon. And then he cited the premise of that argument, which destroyed my entire speech. So, ganun. So, it just not only forces you to think about your argument, but it forces you then to look and listen at the opposing arguments. Pwedeng ganon. In real life, nagagawa mo yan if you're a debater. Teka lang, ano sinasabi nito? Parang mali naman yung sinasabi nito. Tapos biglang sasabihin niya, sir, di ba sinabi niyo po ng ganito, ganyan? Or ma'am, you said a while ago about this and that. But isn't that contrary to what you are trying to do? Yung mga ganung bagay.
So more on the reasoning.
Yes, definitely. There's a lot of applications on reasoning.
yes,
Yes.
tatalas talaga yung reasoning ability mo, because you are forced to look at the arguments of the other side, and you are also forced on your feet. On
Yes,
your
on your
feet.
To think.
To think how to also contradict the other point or yung arguments niya. Basta yung process of conviction and persuasion andon, and yung wit mo of using words.
Yes.
Eto pa rin, eto pala, hindi natin na-discuss. Another thing which is good with the parliamentary debates is that there are not only two sides that are being judged.
Yes.
Even the adjudicators are also being judged.
How come?
Yes. If you are ako, my role in the debate before I was debating, but I'm far more comfortable now with adjudicating and teaching. When you adjudicate a debate, you adjudicate it on different points. When I adjudicate, I use what speaker roles. Did the debaters do the proper speaker roles? Did they have the burden of proof? Meaning, did they do the right job to convince me? And then the other is, did they have the convincing argument to win a debate? Now, as a chief adjudicator, I have to judge my co-adjudicators, how they adjudicated the debate. So did they use the proper reasoning? Did they see the speaker roles of a debate? And were they properly convinced? Now, if once we've made the decision, we do an oral adjudication, meaning we explain to the debaters how we judged the debate and how we thought the debate went out, and then we decide who won. After the decision, they will grade us as adjudicators.
So multifaceted siya, Katropan Jet, because ang adjudicators judge the or evaluate the performance of the speakers. Ito nga sinabi ng research person natin. After they hand down their decision, their judgment, pwede rin sila rin would also be evaluating the performance of their other adjudicators, and later on even the speakers will judge how convincing the adjudicators made their point.
How they summed up everything and how they also held themselves.
Yes,
against the
in
others.
competitive debate, the debater, syempre, whoever wins, go up. Also, the adjudicators who adjudicated properly, even if they voted for the team that lost, the chief adjudicator, which is part of the organizing team, will actually get one of them and then raise them up to the next level.
So quality control siya, Katropan. Quality control siya, because if you are not very convincing in your assessment, in your evaluation, you can be given lower points. And sasabihin din ng mga speakers na the manner of how you evaluate is not convincing because ganito and ganon. And aside from that one, you also avoid being biased.
Yes,
yes.
definitely.
So you really have to be objective all the time.
Yes, that is one of the things which is difficult for the difficulty of a debater is actually how to convince the other side and the adjudicator. The difficulty of an adjudicator is to have a non-biased approach. All your biases have to go to the back of your head.
Yeah, so regardless of whether
Regardless of what school is debating,
or
who is debating, maybe you know the
relationship.
debater. Maybe there are checks and balances for a competitive debate. But as an adjudicator, it must be your utmost goal to be non-biased, to be ultimately objective in every point that you raise and in every debate that is being done. You should actually know how to properly judge based on the normal conventions or even based on the actual debate.
Yeah, my last question po.
Okay.
How would you make teaching debating fun, especially for younger learners?
All right. Wow, that's a very difficult question.
So that they can appreciate it more.
There is this one time where I actually asked them, which is better, Coke or Pepsi? No, seriously. And then there was this one time where I actually asked, well, Generation Z. So if you're a comic book reader or if you're an anime, Naruto or My Hero Academy. My Hero Academia. And then everybody, okay, so everybody's rowdy. Let's do it in a debate. This will be one side, and normally it's not just about whether they have the proficiency for the debate. It's just, do they have the urge to do a debate?
We're having a very lively and interesting discussion right now. Unfortunately, we do not have enough time. So before we go, I would like to invite our resource person kung meron siya mga messages to our audience.
Yes, I'd like to thank and greet Dr. Adelaida Fronda from the Young Women's Christian Association of Manila, YMCA Manila. Doc Fronda, thank you for inviting me for the 44th National YMCA Congress for College Students, just recently held in Baguio City. To Professor Lolita Mercado Dado from the Philippine Christian University for inviting me over there as well, and to all, especially to the PNU debaters, Dr. Ali Anodin from the Philippine Normal University, as well as Dr. Jason Parado. To all our debating team here and around the world, thank you very much for the time in the community during my debating years, and I hope we see each other again in the next years to come. Thank you, thank you, Sir Bobby, and thank you, Sir Jet, for this time.
And do you have any other announcements in terms of forthcoming debate activities?
We would like to ask some of the schools around Metro Manila. There is a planned debate with the Philippine Christian University, but we're still planning on it for an open debate. We're still raising the next generation of debaters on that school. I think there is the intra-varsity debates coming up for next year. I forgot who's the host, but we'd like to ask all other persons, students and learners who wish to debate, please go to your respective schools and ask for a debating society.
All right. On behalf of Dr. Ray Samson, this is your host, Bobby Ancheta.
Jet Ramos.
And we are the voice of the teachers.
Ito ang DWWD 1134 kHz. Balita, impormasyon at musika. AM at FM pinagsama. Ito ang Katropa Radio. Iba tayo.
Kayo ay nakatutok sa 1134 kHz. DWDD Katropa Radio. Iba tayo. Kami po ay kasapi ng KBP, kapisanan ng mga broadcaster ng Pilipinas.
You want His love much more than mine, 'cause I'll just say